11 entries, no point of return, and everyone who saw the camp from the other side describes the same thing. I was nearby, but I didn't get there. Would you continue walking if your steps lead you back to the same place, but to a different camp? This is a story about a path that accepts but does not let go, and where second circle is not a figure of speech. UINTA County, Southwest Wyoming, Bridger Teton National Forest, July 2004. A summer camp for the Federal Young Naturalists Program spends 4 days at a campground on Green Pass. Participants include 6 11 to 13-year-old students, 2 instructors, assigned gear, an approved plan, and a permit from the Park Service. This is a standard outing, an educational module with overnight stays, a hike, bird watching, and basic navigation. The senior instructor is Trevor, age 31. He has been working there for more than 7 years and is a former school teacher who has twice won the county award for his work with children. The second is Sarah Milton, age 26, a biology student and volunteer intern. The route, 2 days at Long Lake, the third day to Green Pass, and the fourth day back down. Base camp is a plateau near Savage Creek, 2 miles below tree line. They arrived on Friday, July 16th. They pitched their tents and checked their gear. The camp log read, temperature 62, wind southwest, 11:09 in the morning. All in place, no change in plan. The 2 days passed quietly. The photo archive provided to the parents after the trip recorded the standard activities: making a fire, working with a compass, observing with binoculars. On Saturday evening, Trevor sends a short message to the center. The camp is stable. The weather is according to plan. Tomorrow, wake up, feed, root. On Sunday morning, the 17th, Sarah was making breakfast. Trevor was up earlier. He was usually not in the morning photo frame, but he would show up later with a notebook where he kept a log of his activities. At 8:30, he was in the camp kitchen. 2 children testified to this. One of them, Jason, recalled, he said he was going to go see if the tent was stuck on the lower slope, like the wind might have blown it off. This is the last confirmed sighting of Trevor. When Sarah checked the site at 9 in the morning, he had not returned. There was a recorder on the table, a Service 1 with a yellow camp mark, activated. There were 11 recordings on the screen. She turned on the first one, a regular log. Left 7:49, walking along the stream path. Sarah thought he was just dragging his feet, but by 11, it was clear he wasn't coming back. So she initiated protocol. She called the control center and activated the standard procedure for holding the children in place. The search team arrived at the camp that evening. 2 hours after their arrival, they listened to the tape recorder. 10 entries, short. Reports on weather, route, position of the stream. The 11th is empty. Almost. If you turn up the volume and remove the wind noise, you can hear a voice at the end, low at the edge of audibility. I think I've lost my way. This is already the second lap. The official National Park Service report describes Trevor Benz as experienced, structured, disciplined, and regimented. He used a standard methodology: camp watch, morning patrol, and log in a notebook and tape recorder. He had a separate map of the route for each day, marked in advance with a felt-tip pen. His handwritten logbook noted, Day 3, check camp downstream, return by 9, party not moving without me. According to Sarah Milton, he woke up around 7. He made himself some coffee and walked up the slope with a notebook and a tape recorder. He wasn't dressed for the hike, just a regular fleece jacket, a cap, no backpack. He left without a GPS, but with a radio. In the recording of the first morning mark, he says, "The stream is unchanged. The trail is visible. Everything is clear. I'll check the turn at the moss. It's an 8-minute walk from the camp." Then there are 6 more entries, spaced 3 or 4 minutes apart. He records everything. Squirrel, not fox. Stream leak, possible crack. Trail line intact, but clay loose. All indicate that he walked no more than 300 or 400 yards along the stream, a standard check of the route's condition. However, in the 7th entry, the phrase appears, "I don't recognize the climb. There was no turn. I'm going higher." It violates the logic of the direction. His path should be along the riverbed, but he seems to be starting to go left, up the slope, toward the old forest belt. On the 8th entry, he reports, "Cedar moss. It shouldn't be here. Turning early? Odd." The problem is that the cedar moss in this area is found only above the tree line, an altitude that guides don't go to without a reason. Old maps show that there were indeed sections of abandoned logging route above the Green Pass line, but they have been excluded from tourist circuits since the 1990s. In the 9th entry, he breathes more quickly. "I didn't take the navigator. Stupid. But I can hear the stream. I'll come back by the noise." On the 10th recording, judging by the background, he is moving. A light crunch appears in the audio background, steps on stones. But the main feature is that he speaks in a whisper. "I don't see the camp. Although I should. The place is the same. What the—" And the recording ends. Then comes the 11th. There is silence in it. Technically, the file exists, but the voice signal is almost indistinguishable. Only at the very end, if you amplify it, can you catch a distorted fragment without background sounds. "I think I've lost my way." This is already the 2nd lap. Later, audio specialists will notice, in this last recording, there is no peak of the beginning of the dictation. It is as if the device turned on by itself, or the recording began when the recorder was already lying in the grass. The children at the camp heard nothing unusual. Sarah said that in 10 minutes she checked the food supply, chased 2 raccoons away from the garbage. Everything was calm, but when she approached the table, the recorder was lying on the tablecloth, switched on, and next to it was his notebook. The last entry in the notebook was 07:48. Launch down. Turn check. Contact via radio. Trevor didn't come on the radio. Requests for Ben's answer came every 10 minutes. No one answered. When the rescue party arrived, they first followed the route logic indicated in the recorder. The problem arose after only 30 minutes. One of the trackers reported that the stream had shifted, or rather, what Trevor's logs described as a turning line near the clay turned out to be an impassable section. And then they realized none of the landmarks mentioned in the notes coincided with the actual path. When Trevor Ben's tape recorder arrived at UINTA County headquarters, the first person to listen to it was Senior Search Coordinator Scott Delaney, a former forestry officer. He listened to all 11 tracks without editing. He said it wasn't just the lyrics that were alarming, but the structure of the recordings. The 8-bit Sony ICD P17 recorder, issued to the camps under the federal program, started recordings strictly manually. No one working in the forest system had a recorded case of spontaneous recording. Nevertheless, Trevor's 11th recording starts 6 minutes after the previous one has finished. By this time, he should already be on his way back. The recording lasts 44 seconds. Technical analysis showed that the first half is absolute silence, but not digital. It is acoustic silence, without wind, without insects, without footsteps, as if the recorder were lying in an isolated environment. Only at the very end, at the 39th second, does a whisper appear, aligned with the center of the channel. "I think I've lost my way. This is already the second lap." And a sound similar to a short touch of plastic on stone. The engineers noted another detail. According to the acoustic model, the recorder was not lying horizontally. The resonance in the last 3 seconds indicates that the microphone was below the level of the voice source. That is, the recording could have been made when Trevor was above the recorder, or standing, and the recorder was lying on the ground. Logically, he should have had the recorder. He always carried it in his breast pocket, but it was on the table in the camp, switched on, in working order, so someone put it there. Or he came back himself, but no one saw it. When comparing the 9 previous entries, a strangeness in the landmarks was discovered. In the 5th entry, Trevor says, "I see a turn with red tape, a marker on the road. Rescuers searched the entire stream. Not a single red ribbon was found. There are no such marks in the photographs or in the camp documents." On the 6th entry, he mentions wooden plate with number, old, worn out. These signs were used in the 90s for temporary routes that were canceled after the flood of 1998. According to the maps, there were no routes with marks in this area after 1999. But according to the old database, one such sign could have actually existed. Route number 43 here L closed in 1997 after 2 accidents. Then the searchers decided to check the archives, and they found a coincidence that changed the direction of the investigation. The Green Pass Camp log from July 1991 included an episode in which the instructor, a 28-year-old woman, left early in the morning to check the route. She returned 2 hours later, in her words, "Got lost at a turn, went up, couldn't understand why the camp wasn't there." She claimed that she walked around the camp but couldn't find the entrance. Her report included the words, "Feeling like I was walking in the same place a second time." The camp leadership then dismissed it as a symptom of fatigue and a stress reaction. The case was closed. But it was this woman, Martha Hansen, who later became one of the first to read the transcript of Trevor's 11th recording. She recognized the phrase, the same intonation, the same word, second circle. She said, "I heard it. I said it myself." But no one believed it then. After that, the Green Pass camp was temporarily closed for a reassessment of the routes. But the area above the creek, where Trevor was thought to have gone, could not be surveyed immediately. Heavy rain began. The ground became unstable. Meanwhile, the first anonymous discovery was made. In an area where no search party had officially entered, a tourist reported a strange find. A notebook wrapped in a plastic bag tied to a tree root. On the first page were the initials TB and the date, a day after Trevor's disappearance. The report of the notebook being found came in at 6:30 a.m. on Monday, July 19th. A hiker who had registered under the name Lawrence Bachman reported that he was hiking along a closed section of Old Route 43L in an attempt to go around the plateau and return to camp over the ridge despite the ban. At a bend in the creek, about 2 miles north of Green Pass Camp, he saw a clear plastic bag hanging from a branch. Inside was a dirty but dry notebook. The paper was thick, with no logos, and the notes were written in pencil. When rescuers opened the package, they found 7 pages of notes, all in the first person. The handwriting was visually consistent with what was in Trevor Benz's work log, but the dates were 2004, July 18th. That's a day after he disappeared. I was walking along the water. The number mark disappeared. I think I made a circle. It seems like there was a turn, but I don't remember it. The coordinates don't match. The stream is the same, but the bank is different. I step. The grass is not trampled. If I find a radio, I'll pass it on. But I'm afraid they're not where I am. There are no voices. I only hear my own steps and the wind, as if playing backwards. The last entry is the shortest. It's lighter now, but the camp isn't responding. I went through the second line. Maybe I'll find them there. Neither second line nor circuit through the light were part of the camp's official terminology. No instructor used such expressions. They were not map language, but rather a personal system of reference. Lawrence Bachman later showed rescuers a photograph he had taken when he found the package. In the background, a little further down the trail, a figure of a man can be seen, wearing a fleece and a cap. The blurriness makes it difficult to say who it is, but the proportions and pose of the man resemble Ben's. Lawrence noted that he had not seen this man in real life, but only noted that it looked like there was someone in the photo. An examination of the photograph confirmed that the frame had not been processed. However, when the fragment was enlarged, it became clear that the figure's right leg did not cast a shadow on the ground, despite the direction of the sunlight. As the group walked north toward the site where the package had been found, another report came in from Camp Green Pass. Sarah Milton, who had stayed with the children, reported that one of the students, 12-year-old Aaron Kay, had said that morning, "I heard Mr. Benz pass by in the night. He said, 'It's late, I'll be back tomorrow.' but I didn't open my eyes. Sarah wrote down his words in her journal. The boy did not change his story. He claimed that he was awakened by the sound of a branch snapping next to the tent. A man was walking, and he heard a voice, and he recognized it without a doubt. But the camp's cameras installed around the perimeter of the tents, low-power IR cameras for recording wild animals, did not record any movement. However, one of the cameras, the one facing the western side of the camp, captured a strange image. It was taken with a 4-second exposure and showed a subtle blur, as if part of a shadow had blocked the lens at 3:46 a.m. When this moment was compared with the recordings from the dictaphone, it turned out that in the same time period in the 11th recording, a short grinding sound was heard, a sound that was previously interpreted as the body touching the stone. This means that the recording could have been made at the moment when he allegedly passed by the camp. And if this is true, the recorder could have been returned after his disappearance. After finding the notebook and a photograph of an unidentified figure, the search party focused on the northern sector of the camp, an area where temporary Route 43L once ran. The route had been closed since 1997 after a spring landslide. According to one of the district's senior rangers, the route itself disappeared. Literally, the trail had washed away, the wooden markers had rotted, and the marking cables had been removed. The modern map labels the area impassable, but Trevor's notes, especially his phrase, went over the second line, indicated that he either knew about the route or ended up on it by accident. The group entered Section 43L, accompanied by signalmen and a forester, with a copy of the 1993 archival map. The coordinates where Lawrence Bachman found the notebook were at the edge of an old descent, where the trail turned east, past fallen cedars and a rocky ridge. This is where the first failure occurred. 2 of the 3 GPS devices began to experience time shifts. The coordinate marks recorded in real time diverged from the reference on the base map by a distance of 40 to 80 feet. Experts describe this as desync with topography. That is, the devices recorded a point, but visually, the person was in a different place. Moreover, this happened only when moving down the trail. When climbing, the error disappeared. Where the trail supposedly opened onto an open slope, the group found another trace, a piece of plastic tag with a number on it. Half of it was worn away, but the legible part, 7B, matched the trail system used in temporary logging operations in the 1980s. It wasn't supposed to be there. 50 yards down the slope, there was a depression, as if from a seat. The grass was flattened, but there were no footprints. Nearby was a thin branch stuck vertically into the ground. On its tip were the remains of electrical tape. This must have been a temporary marker or landmark. On it was written in pencil, "Don't come back through the noise." While they were discussing the meaning, one of the radios picked up a short open channel. No call signal, only a phrase, muffled and with a background hiss. "If you hear, stop." The second line leads to the same place. The message was not repeated. According to the standard, such transmissions are impossible without manual activation. But not a single radio in the group was turned on for transmission, only for reception. At that moment, at the edge of the trail, one of the rescuers, Alan Wigley, stopped and pointed to a rock. On its surface were faint footprints, the shape of trekking boots. But the direction of the footprints was not down, but toward the cliff where the map showed a void. The cliff was about 20 feet high, but beyond it was a ledge, hidden from view. The only way down there was through a narrow pocket between the boulders. One of the climbers went there. 15 minutes later, he radioed, "Here, it's like someone made a campsite. Broken branches, charred moss, and paper." The paper was wrapped in food-grade plastic. It had only 2 lines on it. "I saw the camp, but they didn't answer. Or was it not them?" After finding the note on the ledge, the group moved their search to an area previously considered too small to continue the route, an area between 2 boulders that forms a narrow pocket no more than 5 feet wide. According to the map, it is not passable. No official route has been laid out here. But it is from here that an unusual view opens up onto the plateau where the camp was located. The cliff overhangs at an angle. From this point, the camp can actually be seen, but from the side. 2 tents are visible, as is the table where the tape recorder was later found. Only the distance is more than 400 yards. It is as if an observer were looking at the camp, but not approaching. One of the investigators, a surveyor with 10 years of experience, would later put it this way: "It feels like the camp and this site are in the same landscape, but not on the same trail." That same day, the technical team compares the GPS track linked to Trevor's voice recorder with the routes taken on the day of his disappearance. And here comes the second serious anomaly. Trevor's first track from camp to stream matches the data, but after the 6th mark, the direction changes. It goes north, makes a turn, and, judging by the coordinates, goes about 200 yards. Then, a break. 15 minutes later, the next point is fixed, almost on the same line from which he came out. Then again, north, again a turn, and again, return. A loop is formed, similar to a circle, only without a closure. Visually, it looks like a person tried to leave the zone 3 times and returned to the same place 3 times. The difference in coordinates is no more than 20 feet. Technically, this could be a glitch, but when compared with the step frequency and the length of the movement, it seems as if the landscape itself folds the route. In the transcript of the second part of the voice recorder, not the one that remained in the camp, but the supposed one, judging by the landmarks mentioned in the found recordings, the experts found one peculiarity. Trevor stops using familiar phrases. The word route disappears. New ones appear. Contour, environment, the same forest. The outline doesn't change. I count the trees, the same. The steps are counted, but everything is the same. I heard a noise like water, but there is no stream. The birds are silent. This is not wilderness. It is like a test. No one could explain the word test. Some thought he meant check, but in combination with the previous statements, it sounds different. At the end of the recording, breathing, steps, a pause. Then, here begins the second circle. We must proceed differently. This is the last phrase in the recordings that could be recovered. That same evening, a report comes in from the helicopter pilot. While flying over the western part of the stream, 15 miles from the camp, a bright point was noticed, like a reflection of glass or metal. The coordinates are transmitted. The next day, a group set out there. They found no camp, no tent, no traces of a fire, but in a crevice between rocks, almost at the very bottom of the gorge, they found an object not listed in any inventory, a digital flash drive inserted into an old plastic case from a voice recorder, the same model as Trevor's. The case is marked TB2. There is one file on the map, no name. The recording lasts 13 seconds. If anyone hears, do not follow logic. The path does not return. I am near. But they will not know. When experts analyzed the flash drive found in the crevice, 3 questions immediately arose. First, the recorder it belonged to was not issued to Camp Green Pass. The inventory list listed only one, the one left on the table. Secondly, the card contained only one file, without metadata, but with a characteristic digital signature used in those models only in manual recording. This means that it was activated by a person. And thirdly, the voice recorded on the recording, when compared spectrally, matched the speech sample of Trevor Benz with an accuracy of 99%. The key contradiction, however, was the date. Based on the signatures and the internal time code of the media, it was determined that the recording was made on July 19th at 8:37 in the morning. But at that time, the camp was already under guard, and not a single person was seen in the area of the gorge. Moreover, the point itself, 15 miles from the route, is unreachable on foot without spending the night. And if he did go, he had to walk more than 20 miles in one day over rough terrain. In civilian shoes, without a backpack, without food, and, according to eyewitnesses, in a light fleece. No traces of this transition were found. No fires, no halts, no dropped things, only a record. At the same time, the headquarters analyzed data from the camp cameras. One of them, installed at the rear slope of the camp kitchen, went off on the night of the 19th at 3:43 in the morning. The frame duration was 4 seconds. In it, in the depth of the frame, behind the tents, a blurry figure is visible. It does not move. But in the second frame of the series, it is no longer there. When the height of the object and the angle of shooting were compared, it became clear. This is a man about 6 feet tall. But the main thing is that in the fragment of the frame, during the storyboard, a white element was visible. Later, it was identified as a tag from a vest. Such were issued to instructors of federal camps. Trevor had it. Sarah didn't. The problem is in the route. To get into the frame from that angle, the person had to approach from the forest. But at that time, the perimeter was already surrounded by searchers. No one reported the stranger. Later, in a classified report written for internal use, a senior Park Service investigator wrote, "Benz likely continued to move after losing contact. Evidence suggests he perceived the camp as visually accessible, but not physically reachable." Hypothesis: spatial disorientation with navigational closure. This is the official wording, but unofficial comments suggested another theory. That part of the route, the old 43L line, goes into an area where the topography does not return. A satellite image taken on July 21st, after the ground operation had been completed, showed a bright spot on the southern side of the old route, possibly a reflection, possibly a camera error. But one technical analyst noted, the point is located exactly in the sector where GPS loses track. This is not a coincidence. Today, Trevor Ben's name is listed as missing in the line of duty. Camp Green Pass reopened 3 years later after the route was moved south. But in July 2008, another instructor temporarily working at the camp complained about a GPS failure during a tour. He wrote in his report, "I wanted to turn back, but the path led to a camp where there was no one." He returned. 20 minutes later, the camp was in place, with tents and children.